So game week 7 is nearly upon us after a high scoring game week 6 for a lot of people. So we want to make sure we get those transfers right. So watch this video to give you some hints and tips going forward. If you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. With that being said, let's get straight into the video. So starting off with some transfers in then, and up top, a player I would be looking at potentially bringing in would be Woltemade at Newcastle. Now, they've got a nice little run of fixtures coming up in comparison to a lot of teams around them. And then also at 7.1 million, he could represent really good value. His underlying numbers aren't necessarily the best at 0.24 expected goals per 90 and pretty much non-existent expected assists. But I think we've seen from the way that they play and the way they utilise Woltemade that Newcastle themselves, he doesn't need these XG chances. They are going to put balls into the box and he will just finish them, it seems. He doesn't seem to get too involved in general play, so probably why you see his assists are so low. But he can just get a goal from anywhere. As soon as they get those balls right, he's tall enough and he'll be beating a lot of centre-backs in the air, and he will be making life difficult for a lot of centre-backs in those teams they have to play in the coming weeks. So I think he could be a nice little option, especially at his price going forward. The other striker that I think we should, if we haven't got already, we should be considering Viktor Gyökeres if you have that bit more of a budget to spend. This is the fixture swing now. He was on my recommended list last week, but going into the Newcastle game, I said it's a bit of a risk, but you might as well go a week early if you're wildcarding. Bring him in now because that fixture swing is now here with West Ham at home at the weekend, and that is a perfect fixture for Gyökeres to get back on the score sheet for Arsenal in the Premier League. He has a great record at home. All his goals seem to be coming at home for Arsenal so far, and to be honest, still a pretty decent XG of 0.44. I really fancy him to score in this game, to be honest. Maybe he can go on and get a double, who knows. So yeah, that London derby will be one to watch, especially if you decide to go with Viktor Gyökeres. In midfield then, I really like the look of Ismaila Sarr. Now, his XG is staggering, actually. He obviously missed the last 2 games prior to the Liverpool game with injury, but a 0.72 expected goals per 90 is incredible. I don't necessarily think that will continue throughout the season. I don't think that's too sustainable, but he's such an important player for Crystal Palace, and him and Mateta are their main goal threats, without a shadow of a doubt. And at 6.4 million, so a little bit of a price drop from his 6.5 because of that injury he had. A lot of people transferred him out. I think he's a great option, and if you look at the bottom there, Crystal Palace's fixtures, they're not the worst either. You've got a away fixture at Everton, which you would fancy he can get a goal in a fixture like that, no problem. Then Bournemouth at home. Arsenal away isn't ideal. It is a difficult fixture, but if you had to play him, not the end of the world. You could bench him. Then 2 home games though against Brentford and Brighton. So you've got him. You can bring him into your team, and it's one of those players that you could potentially just set and forget. And then on top of that, then I've got Jadon Anthony. I started talking about him earlier in the week because I felt like nobody was talking about him, or not enough people were talking about him. And then all of a sudden this week, I think it's a bit of that snowball effect where people are now talking about Anthony, and a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon. As soon as I started to make this video, he was 5.6, and that's had to be changed now as he has gone up to 5.7 million. Now, it's interesting, this one. He's a fantastic, I think, great option as your 5th midfielder. But it's sort of mixed his fixtures in the near future. But Aston Villa away isn't that red fixture at the moment that it's sort of playing to be. Everybody knows what Villa have been like this season. But After that, you've got Leeds and Wolves, which are fantastic fixtures for Burnley. Arsenal then, obviously not ideal, but then you've got a away trip to West Ham United. So he's a fantastic rotation player that you can set him out your team and then bring him in when you need him over the next 5 weeks. So certainly one I would be considering. Then in the defence, Gabriel, of course, he was in my team in my wildcard last week, and he was on this list last week as well. And he was another one like Victor Gyökeres that I said that we should be going early on. And if you did, well done, because that really did pay off with his goal and his 13-pointer. Now, like I said before, you will now have him, or getting him in this week will enable you to take advantage of those great Arsenal fixtures. Nothing more really to be said about him. I think you want him as a bare minimum as an Arsenal defender in your team, and then you could double up with maybe one of the fullbacks or David Raya and really target those great fixtures. Then finally, I just have to put him in here, is Marco Senesi, if you haven't got him already. He's taken a heck of a price increase, and he's gone from 4.5 and now he's 4.9 million. So he's managed to do that over the 6 game week so far. But he is the only player now left who's hit DEFCON in every single game, I believe, with Tarkowski missing out in the last game. So he is an absolute monster, and that Bournemouth defence is looking reasonably solid as well. It's not perfect, but it's certainly a lot better than a lot of people predicted going into the season with the amount of players that Bournemouth lost in that defence. So a fantastic option, and almost, or maybe is, a must-have in your defence. So let's look at some players to hold then, and to start with, I've gone with Jean-Philippe Mateta at Crystal Palace, 7.5 million, and Everton away next. Now, he's only scored 2 goals so far this season in the 6 games. I mean, it's obviously better than some, but I think we were probably expecting a little bit more from him so far, with one of those goals being a penalty. And he hasn't actually scored more than 6 points in a game so far this season. But his underlying numbers are there in terms of expected goals at 0.61. So he is underperforming at the moment. And I think he, especially the way Crystal Palace are playing, he is due to get a lot more goals in the near future, I feel. And then, like I say, with Everton away next and Bournemouth, I think it's the sort of fixtures you want to really consider holding Mateta through. You've only got somebody like Victor Gyökeres who's got better fixtures in the near future. It's certainly in the next 2 games anyway. So a reasonable hold up until that Arsenal away fixture, and then maybe you could reconsider. But like I said before, regarding Ismail Assar, you've got 2 nice fixtures right after Arsenal then that you probably wouldn't mind having Jean-Philippe Mateta for. Then my next hold is Ollie Watkins, and this is somebody who's bounced around from my players to hold and players to sell all season. He's back in the players to hold list. He's finally off the mark for the season, and now he's got a Burnley team at home, and a Burnley team that is pretty much the weakest defence in the league. So with him off the mark now, maybe he can build on that confidence. You've got to feel he's going to score in that next game. So if you are one of those players that stayed patient, held him, you are going to be more than happy keeping him for that extra week, maybe the extra 2 for Tottenham, but then you've got some difficult fixtures against Manchester City and Liverpool. Then look to reevaluate and then potentially get rid. Going on to the midfield, and somebody who had quite an eventful game week 6 is Bruno Fernandes. Now, we talk about XG, and he's got a very impressive XG, Bruno Fernandes, with the 0.59 and the 0.17 assists. DEFCON average per 90 is 10.91. So there's a lot of positives with Bruno Fernandes, but like I was about to say, an eventful game week for him, another missed penalty, and ended up on a -1, and punish those managers that maybe brought him in on a wild card or decided to continue playing him, holding him. But I still think he's a hold with that Sunderland fixture up next. Now, this probably isn't the easiest fixture in terms of what we thought that Sunderland may have brought to the party this season. They have exceeded expectations and they've looked really good. So this might be a lot more difficult fixture than it looks on paper. But these are still the sort of games that Bruno Fernandes thrives in, just like that Burnley game where we got those 10 points, got the penalty at the end. And there's no reason why I can't see him not doing that against Sunderland potentially. So another one that you probably give another week and then reevaluate when he's got Liverpool away after that. And then next up on my list, I was probably struggling for another midfield hold, but Tierney Reinders is a pretty good player for this slot, I think. People would have brought him in on wildcard. People would have held him through most of the season when everybody jumped on that bandwagon. So his price went up, started to come down a bit, and now it's back on the rise. But I think people would have been a bit frustrated with the lack of involvement, especially with 5 goals being scored against Burnley. But I think at the end of the day, we've got to set our expectations with Reinders. He is that sort of box-to-box, slightly holding midfielder behind the number 10. His chances will be very limited, but he will get them. And he will chip in with points every now and then. But you don't bring in Reinders in the hope that he's going to be your sort of game breaker week in, week out. So again, with the Man City fixtures coming up, Brentford away, Everton at home, more than happy to hold. That's why a lot of people would have brought him in on this wildcard if they hadn't already, because of the game last week against Burnley, but also those next 2 fixtures. So you continue to hold him through those games. Then finally, in defence, we have Mickey van der Ven. Now, they're starting to show a little bit of fragility, I would say, Tottenham. But at 4.8 million, I think there's going to be other priorities that you would probably prefer to get rid of in the defence. And with Leeds up next as well, Leeds away. And a Leeds team that they're starting to score now. I was worried about that attack for a long time, but they are starting to score goals. But a clean sheet is more than possible. And after that then, not the easiest fixtures, but he's got 3 home games in 4. And as a £4.8 million midfielder, he's more than rotation worthy in your teams. And he's guaranteed 90 minutes every time as long as he stays fit. So why not hold on to him just for now? You've probably got bigger priorities. Then finally, Virgil van Dijk. Now Liverpool are starting to wobble. They're starting to show signs of fragility themselves. But he is a player that didn't hit DEFCON last game, but it is hitting it pretty regularly. So even when Liverpool aren't going to keep those clean sheets, he should still be hitting DEFCON more often than not. Then the fixtures coming up as well, they're not ideal, but Liverpool can still keep a clean sheet in just about any game. That Chelsea game will be an interesting one with players missing like Cole Palmer, both centre-backs in Chalobah and Tosin missing, so it's going to be a makeshift centre-back. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Chelsea team turn up. And then obviously after that, Manchester United, which is normally quite a tight affair, if not one team like Liverpool do have the ability to run away with it. We haven't seen really Manchester United dominate any game against Liverpool in recent years. So again, another player you should really consider holding. So finally, we've got the players we should be considering to sell really. And Ekitike is up first. We're starting to see Isak finally eat into those minutes of Hugo Ekitike. Now, I'm sure he will still get pretty good game time, but it also looked like he picked up a bit of an injury in the Champions League in midweek. So for my money, against Chelsea, I think we're going to be seeing Alexander Isak start that game, even if Ekitike is fit or not. And then going forward, you just can't guarantee the minutes are going to be there. That Liverpool attack as well is sort of looking shaky at the moment, and I think we should just hold off on anything Liverpool at the moment, especially when you look we can't even trust Mohamed Salah at the moment either. So probably one that I would be looking to put my 8.7 million elsewhere. Just using that extra 0.3 and getting Victor Gyökeres seems like a much better use of that money with the upcoming fixtures as well. Then Chris Wood, I think it's finally time to jump off Chris Wood. I think it's fair to say, and you'll see all down this right hand side, that Nottingham Forest is not the team to be on at the moment. They are way off it compared to their standards of last season, and I think I've just got that feeling as well that Nuno know how to get the best out of Chris Wood. Chris Wood will still chip in with goals, but I'm yet to see that Ange can get the best out of Chris Wood going forward. So I think another thing I think we should be looking at and monitoring is how good Igor Jesus has looked in the European competitions and some of the cup games. He's looked really effective for Nottingham Forest, and it makes me wonder how long it'll be till somebody like that starts and gets given a chance in the Premier League. Next up then, Liverpool again. Florian Wirtz, as I say, that attack is it's just not there at the moment with Liverpool. It's almost like they're struggling to break down teams. They're just not quite clicking with each other. Maybe it's just the amount of new faces in that team, and they're just trying to still work each other out and get that full understanding, team chemistry with each other. On top of that, Florian Wirtz has had moments, he's had flashes. I mean, there is a little bit of XG and XA there. I mean, it's not substantial, but you could consider him kind of unlucky not to have returned at all this season with those stats. But you can just see he's still going to take a lot more time to bed in. And I believe it's 10% still holding him. If you're one of those 10%, it is time to finally sell him. I've said this for a few weeks now. I think a lot of us can see this. So let's move off him. Then I've got Morgan Gibbs-White as well, just to reiterate that Nottingham Forest point. Now, it's a really poor, he's XG, XA himself, like a lot less than Florian Wirtz, who we consider has been relatively ineffective when it comes to Fantasy League and returning. Morgan Gibbs-White himself hasn't returned since the opening day of the season. So if you're one of those that's still holding on to Morgan Gibbs-White, the way Forest are playing, I think it's time to wave goodbye. Then finally in the defence, Pedro Porro actually, to go off the Nottingham Forest theme for a minute. Now, he was dropped last game, and I do want that sort of headache, especially with a £5.6 million midfielder. And then if you have somebody like Gabriel, you could easily upgrade Pedro Porro to an alternative Arsenal defender like Calafiori, Jurriën Timber, who's not that much more, 0.2 more, if that. Even with Leeds next, it is hard to say sell a Tottenham defender with Leeds away next, but you've got the rotation risk, and he's nowhere near getting DEFCON points. Those assists and those goals, he hasn't chipped in with anything like that, and that's the sort of reason you have a player like Pedro Porro. So for me, it just seems like a waste of money, and you're better off, like I said many weeks ago, just relying on maybe a few DEFCON points from somebody like a Romero for a lot cheaper. But like I said, with that price tag, go to an Arsenal defender, no brainer. Then finally, Milenkovic at Nottingham Forest. Again, that defence as well, it's not just the attack. Like they weren't the most free scoring team last season, but they did enough. And their defence was so solid, and it's been anything but that this season. Newcastle away next for them as well. I cannot see them keeping a clean sheet in that game, especially with the type of style of football that Ange Postecoglou likes to play. So if you needed any more reiteration, get rid of not just Milenkovic, but any of your Forest assets. I'd probably look to jump off them. And then maybe you could easily move Milenkovic, if you haven't already, to somebody like Marco Senesi. And you're also saving yourself 0.5 million. So for me, that's an absolute no-brainer as well. So I hope that video helped you out with some transfer tips, give you a little bit of inspiration and prepares you going into game week 7. If you did like it, please hit the like, it would really help. What would help even more is if you subscribed and hit the notification bell, and make sure you don't miss my team selection video, which will be up next, I believe tomorrow. So with that being said, have a good day guys, and I'll see you in the next video.